It was a grey December morning in London, and the rain was pelting against the windows of my flat in Notting Hill, whilst I watched the black cabs splash through the puddles below. My mobile rang with a message notification. It was Charlotte, my elder sister. "We need to talk. It's rather urgent," the text read. My heart skipped a beat. 3 months earlier, our father had died from a sudden stroke, and since then, our relationship had become frightfully strained. We'd grown up in a Georgian townhouse in Belgravia, one of London's most exclusive postcodes. Father was the founding partner of one of the city's most prestigious law chambers in Lincoln's Inn Fields, specializing in international corporate law and mergers. Charlotte had always been his golden child, the firstborn who'd followed in his footsteps, read law at Cambridge, and was now a senior partner at the chambers. I, Eleanor, had become a pediatrician at Great Ormond Street Hospital. Father never quite hid his disappointment when I'd chosen medicine over the family tradition. I met Charlotte at Claridge's for afternoon tea, our customary meeting spot since we were girls. She was positively glowing, her auburn hair perfectly styled, wearing a bespoke suit from Savile Row that likely cost 3 months of my salary. "Eleanor, I'm getting married," she announced, flashing a ring with a diamond that caught the light from the crystal chandeliers. James, her fiancé, was the son of a high court judge, himself a successful barrister. The perfect match in the eyes of our social circle. "How wonderful, Charlotte," I replied, trying to sound genuinely pleased. She began discussing the arrangements, the catering by Circe's, the flowers by McQueen's, the dress from Alexander McQueen. "It'll be in March at the Dorchester on Park Lane. I've already chosen my bridesmaids. 7 of them, you know, the perfect number." I waited. She continued talking about the string quartet from the Royal Academy, the honeymoon in the Cotswolds. But my name was never mentioned amongst the bridesmaids. "And what about me?" I finally asked, my voice wavering. Charlotte averted her gaze, fiddling with her linen napkin. "Eleanor, you know I care for you deeply, but the bridesmaids are all from my professional circle. Wives of QCs, fellow barristers from the Inner Temple, you understand. It's important for the chambers, for our reputation." I felt as though I'd been punched in the stomach. "I'm your only sister," I whispered. "I know, but you can participate in other ways. Perhaps do a reading during the service, help with the wedding favors." I left Claridge's in a daze. I walked along the Thames, tears mixing with the rain on my face. It wasn't merely about being a bridesmaid. It was years of exclusion, of always being the second choice, the sister who hadn't followed the expected script. I rang my mother, hoping for some comfort. "Eleanor, don't make a fuss. You know how Charlotte is. It's her wedding, let her have it her way." Once again, I had to swallow my feelings. In the weeks that followed, Charlotte sent me photos of the preparations, the bridesmaids' dresses, an exclusive design in dusty rose silk, the rehearsals at St. George's Hanover Square, the makeup trials at Charlotte Tilbury. Each image was like salt in a wound. I responded with heart emojis, feigning joy while something inside me withered. My colleagues at the hospital noticed my melancholy. "You've been rather quiet lately, Eleanor," observed Professor Thompson, my consultant. I made excuses about being knackered from the night shifts. It was on a dreary Thursday that everything changed. I was on call when I received a ring from an unknown number. "Dr. Eleanor Pemberton? This is Mr. Charles Whitfield from Whitfield & Associates Solicitors. I need to speak with you about your father's will." My heart raced. "The will? But hasn't it already been read?" "There's been an amendment, madam. Your father made substantial changes last December, mere days before his passing. For legal reasons, we can only disclose the contents in the presence of all beneficiaries." We scheduled a meeting for the following week. Curiously, it was the day before Charlotte's wedding. I rang my sister. "Charlotte, father's solicitor wants to see us. He says there are changes to the will." She laughed. "What absolute rubbish, Eleanor. Father had everything sorted years ago. The chambers go to me, you get the cottage in the Cotswolds and some investments. It's all settled." But I detected a tremor in her voice. The meeting was set for Friday at 3 o'clock. Charlotte insisted she couldn't possibly attend. "It's the eve of my wedding. I have the rehearsal, the dinner with the wedding party. You go and tell me afterwards." But Mr. Whitfield was adamant. Both must be present. She had to cancel her appointment at Johannesford and arrived at the chambers in Mayfair absolutely livid, accompanied by James. The offices were in a Grade 2 listed building overlooking Green Park. The conference room had oak paneling and windows facing the Royal Academy. Mr. Whitfield was a distinguished gentleman with silver hair and wire-rimmed spectacles. He'd known Father for 40 years. "Ladies, I know this is rather awkward timing on the eve of a celebration, but it's crucial we clarify this now." He opened a burgundy leather portfolio. "Your father came to see me on the 23rd of December. He was quite emotional. He said he'd had an epiphany at Christmas and needed to correct an injustice." Charlotte shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "What injustice?" she asked sharply. The solicitor adjusted his spectacles. He said, and I quote, "I've spent my life favoring one daughter over the other. Eleanor has always been relegated to second place, and that must change." The silence in the room was deafening. James took Charlotte's hand. Mr. Whitfield continued, "The changes are substantial. Eleanor, you inherit 70% of the law chambers." Charlotte went white as a sheet. "That's impossible. I'm the barrister. I've worked there for 15 years. "There's a letter," said the solicitor, handing us each an envelope. With trembling hands, I opened mine. Father's handwriting, slightly shaky with age. "Eleanor, my dearest daughter, last Christmas, I watched you serve everyone, care for your grandmother who was poorly, always with a smile, even when Charlotte announced you wouldn't be a bridesmaid. I saw the hurt in your eyes and realized how many times I'd allowed you to be diminished. You chose to save lives whilst Charlotte chose prestige. It's time to balance the scales. The chambers need someone with your humanity to lead, even if you're not a barrister. Hire the best, but lead with the heart you've always had." Charlotte was weeping. "This is fraud. Eleanor manipulated Father. I'll contest this." Mr. Whitfield shook his head. "Your father was of completely sound mind. He had medical examinations, psychiatric evaluation. Everything is documented." James was trying to calm Charlotte, who was trembling with rage. "And the wedding? How do I explain this to everyone tomorrow?" I left that meeting in shock. Charlotte stormed out, James trailing behind her. I didn't sleep a wink that night, reading Father's letter over and over. The next day, Saturday, I woke early. The wedding was at 5 o'clock. I looked in my wardrobe. I'd laid out a modest navy dress, appropriate for someone watching from the 5th row. But something changed in me that morning. I went to Selfridge's and bought a dress. White, an elegant design, nothing flashy, but unmistakably white. The shop assistant hesitated. "Madam, is this for a wedding?" "Yes," I replied firmly, "for my sister's wedding." She tried to show me other options, but I was resolute. I arrived at the Dorchester at 4:45. The ballroom was magnificently decorated with white roses and gold accents. Waiters circulated with champagne. I saw the 7 bridesmaids, all in dusty rows, chattering excitedly. Distant cousins, colleagues from chambers, wives of prominent judges. No sister. When I entered the ballroom, there was a murmur. People whispered, pointed discreetly. My mother rushed over. "Eleanor, have you gone mad? Remove that dress at once." "I'm perfectly fine as I am, Mother." She turned crimson. "You'll ruin your sister's wedding." "As she ruined our relationship," I replied calmly. I sat in the 5th row, as expected. The bridesmaids entered, then James. The wedding march began. Charlotte looked stunning, her French lace gown falling perfectly. But when she saw me, her smile froze. For a second, our eyes met. I saw anger, then something resembling understanding. The ceremony proceeded normally until the vows. The vicar asked if anyone had anything to say. I stood up. The entire ballroom held its breath. I walked to the altar. Charlotte was pale. "I have something to say," I announced, my voice echoing through the ballroom. "But it's not an objection." I turned to face the guests. "Many of you know our father passed away 3 months ago. What you don't know is that he left an important message." I took Father's letter from my clutch. He wrote about the importance of correcting injustices, of valuing those who truly deserve it. Charlotte began to cry. James gripped her hand tightly. "Father changed his will last Christmas. After a lifetime of putting me second, he decided it was time to balance things." I paused, looking directly at Charlotte. "I've inherited 70% of the law chambers." The ballroom erupted in murmurs. I saw the High Court judge, James's father, stand up in shock. "But I haven't come here to humiliate my sister," I continued. "I've worn white so everyone can see the truth. For years, I was the invisible sister, the one not good enough to be a bridesmaid, the one who chose the wrong profession. Today, I'm here, visible, impossible to ignore. Charlotte stepped forward. "Eleanor, please." Her voice was broken. "Charlotte, you have two choices. We can continue pretending everything's fine, that our family is perfect, or we can be honest for the first time." I looked at James. "Your husband needs to know he's marrying someone who excluded her own sister from the most important day of her life." My mother attempted to approach, but my uncle held her back. The vicar didn't know what to do. It was then that Charlotte did something unexpected. She removed her veil, set it aside, and embraced me tightly. She began to sob uncontrollably. "Forgive me, Eleanor. Please forgive me," she whispered in my ear. "I was so frightfully scared of being overshadowed by you. You were always the kinder one, the one the grandparents and aunts adored. Father pretended to prefer me, but I saw how he looked at you with pride when you saved a child at hospital." The ballroom was in absolute silence. Charlotte pulled away, wiped her tears. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce my sister, Eleanor. She should have been here beside me as a bridesmaid, but my pride and insecurity prevented it." She looked at the 7 bridesmaids. "With all due respect to you, I've made a terrible mistake." James approached. "Charlotte, what's happening?" She took his hands. "The truth, James. Finally, the truth. My father partially disinherited me because he realized I'd spent my life belittling Eleanor. And he was right." She turned to me. "Eleanor, would you be my bridesmaid now? I know it's late, but..." I looked at my sister, then at the ballroom full of shocked faces. "Charlotte, I no longer need the validation of being your bridesmaid, but I accept being your sister properly for the first time." I extended my hand to her. "Shall we start over?" What happened next surprised everyone. James spoke. "I think we all need a moment." He turned to the vicar. "Reverend, might we have a break?" The clergyman, still stunned, agreed. The guests began murmuring more loudly. Some went out to the terrace, others to the bar. Charlotte, James, and I went to an adjoining room. My mother tried to follow, but Charlotte requested privacy. In the room, James was direct. "Charlotte, you hid this from me?" She lowered her head. "I thought it wasn't important. It was just about money." "No," I interrupted. "It was about family, about justice. Father saw what everyone pretended not to see." James sat down, ran his hand through his hair. "My father will have a fit when he learns about the chambers." "It's not about your father," Charlotte interrupted him. "It's about us. Eleanor's right. I spent years building a perfect image whilst destroying my relationship with my only sister." We remained silent for several minutes. Outside, we could hear the buzz of guests. Finally, James spoke. "Eleanor, what will you do with the chambers?" I considered before answering. "I'll honor Father's wish. I'll lead with humanity. And Charlotte, you remain as senior partner if you wish." "But things will change. We'll take on pro bono cases. We'll help those who need it, not just those who can pay." Charlotte smiled for the first time. "Father would be proud." She took my hand and James's. "Shall we go back and finish this wedding?" James hesitated. "Are you certain? After all this?" Charlotte kissed him. "I've never been more certain. Marrying with the truth exposed is better than marrying with lies." We returned to the ballroom. Many guests had departed, including some important members of the wedding party, but those who remained seemed curious about the outcome. Charlotte approached the microphone. "I apologize for the interruption. Anyone who wishes to leave is free to do so, but those who stay will witness a real wedding with a real family, with real problems we're trying to solve." Surprisingly, most stayed. My 87-year-old grandmother, who was in a wheelchair in the corner, raised her trembling hand and said, "About bloody time you two sorted yourselves out. Your father must be applauding up there." Some laughed, breaking the tension. The ceremony resumed. I remained where I was, in my white dress, no longer as a provocation, but as a declaration that I was there, present, visible. When James and Charlotte exchanged their vows, she added a line. "I promise to be true not only to you, but to all those I love, especially those I've neglected." At the reception, I sat at the head table beside Charlotte. People came to congratulate us, some embarrassed, others curious. The High Court judge, James's father, pulled me aside. "So, you'll be running the chambers?" "I'll do my best, Your Honor." He studied me for a moment. "Your father was a wise man. Perhaps a doctor is exactly what those chambers need." Around midnight, Charlotte threw the bouquet. It came straight towards me, but I dodged. It landed in the hands of one of the original bridesmaids, who seemed relieved. Charlotte laughed. "You never take what I offer easily, do you?" "I've learnt that what comes easily isn't always what we need," I replied. Before departing for their honeymoon, Charlotte embraced me again. "Eleanor, when I return, shall we sit down and plan the chamber's future together?" "Together," I confirmed. James embraced me as well. "Thank you for your courage today. You've saved more than a wedding. You've saved a family." I left the Dorchester in the early hours. The white dress had wine stains from someone who'd accidentally, or perhaps not, spilt their glass. It didn't matter. I walked along Park Lane, empty save for the occasional night bus. I stopped at Hyde Park Corner, removed my shoes, and walked a bit on the pavement. My mobile vibrated. It was a message from Charlotte, already at Heathrow. "Eleanor, I found another letter from Father in my bag. James must have slipped it in. It reads, 'My daughters, if you're reading this together, it means Eleanor had the courage to do what I should have done years ago. The chambers are merely assets. What matters is that you find each other as sisters. Eleanor, lead with your heart. Charlotte, learn from your sister. Together, you're unstoppable.'" I read the message with tears in my eyes. The sun was rising, painting the London sky pink and gold above Westminster. I thought of Father, how he'd orchestrated this reconciliation, even after death. The will wasn't about money or power. It was about justice, about love, about correcting mistakes before it was too late. Monday, I entered the chambers for the first time as majority owner. The receptionist looked at me, startled. News of the wedding had already spread through the legal community. I called a meeting with all the barristers. Some looked at me skeptically, others with curiosity. "I know I'm not a barrister," I began, "but I'm a doctor. I know how to diagnose problems and find cures. These chambers are sick with elitism, and we must change that." I presented my plan. 30% of cases would be pro bono. We'd partner with charities. We'd defend public health causes. Some barristers resigned on the spot. Others, surprisingly, applauded. "It's about time," said Mr. Hartley, a senior QC. "Your father spoke of this in his final years, but never had the courage to implement it." 6 months later, the chambers were unrecognizable. We kept the important clients, but now we also defended families facing eviction, injured workers, children needing medical treatment the NHS wouldn't provide. Charlotte returned from honeymoon renewed. Working together wasn't easy initially, but we learned. A year later, on the anniversary of Father's death, we went together to Kensal Green Cemetery. We placed flowers on his grave, white orchids, his favorites. "Do you think he planned it all?" Charlotte asked. "Even my white dress at the wedding?" I laughed. Knowing Father, I wouldn't be surprised. He was always a strategist. We stood in silence, watching the wind rustle through the ancient yews of the cemetery. "Eleanor," Charlotte said softly, "I'm pregnant." My heart leapt with joy. "Truly," she nodded, tears in her eyes. "And I want you to be the godmother." "Now you want me as godmother?" I teased. "Now I want you for everything. Sister, partner, best friend, godmother to my child." We embraced there, amongst the Victorian monuments, two sisters who'd needed a dramatic will and a chaotic wedding to finally find each other. Sometimes I think Father's laughing somewhere at the brilliance of his plan. He didn't just divide his estate, he united his family. The chambers are now amongst the most respected in London, not just for prestige, but for social justice work. Charlotte's become a leading voice in human rights law. I continue as a pediatrician, but now also a businesswoman, proving compassion and success can go hand in hand. James has become a wonderful brother-in-law and tremendous support. That morning at the cemetery, I looked at Father's headstone. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me when I felt invisible, for correcting your mistakes even after death, for giving me not just chambers, but my sister back." The wind blew stronger, as if answering. Today, when I tell this story, people don't believe it. An excluded sister, a surprise will, a white dress at someone else's wedding. It sounds like a teledrama, but life sometimes surpasses fiction. And the truth, however painful in the moment, always sets you free. Charlotte had my stained white dress from the wedding framed. It hangs in the chambers with a plaque, "The courage to be seen." It's a daily reminder that sometimes we must break protocol, challenge conventions, and wear white when everyone expects us to be invisible. Because in the end, it's not about inheritances or perfect weddings. It's about authenticity, forgiveness, and the courage to start over, even when it seems too late. And what about you? What do you think of this story? Would you have had the courage to show up in white? Was Eleanor's father too harsh on Charlotte, or did he do the right thing? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss our emotional stories. Every week, I bring you new true stories that will make you think about family, love, and forgiveness. See you in the next video.